So good evening, guys. Let me welcome all of you on behalf of Sunbeam. So today we are starting with this batch, mastering generative AI from foundations to something like the real systems. Now, the real reason why we are going for this entire batch here is like I've seen many a times in companies and while taking interviews of many people, they generally know how to call the APIs and they generally just do the same job, but they do not know what happens beneath. So if you are calling a Cloud API and if you are generating the code, for example, I'm saying, or if you are calling something like an OpenAI, passing some content and getting some content generated, for example, you know that you are getting the answer, but you do not know what exactly happens behind the scene. And that is why we are calling it from foundations to the real system. When I say foundation, there are multiple things you should know. I mean, if you want to call yourself as an AI engineer, then you should know many different things. Out of that, the very basic thing to be a good, a good AI engineer is to know the stats. I'm not saying you should be a stats master, but at least there are enough stats you have to know in order to understand how the systems work. The real problem is faced in the industry when you are facing some challenges or if you're not able to see something is working as you are expecting it to work. And many a times people get literally baffled. They can't solve the problem because the code is generated by AI and it's very complex at the same time. That's the reason people generally face the challenges. And sometimes people have seen, I mean, I've seen people have left the entire job just because they could not understand what the AI is generating the code there. So if you understand these foundations, I can bet on this, even if the code is generated by AI, you can definitely understand what the code has been written and how you can tackle this problem. So that's where the foundation comes into the picture. So the first foundational level is the stats. The second foundational level is something like a ML. The classic ML it is known as, or machine learning, which is called as. This is where you are going to see the set of algorithms, which will give you the basic understanding of what exactly the machine learning is, how the AI system works, or what exactly DL is all about. That is all dependent upon something called an ML, machine learning it is known as. Then gradually you should understand something called a DL. The DL stands for deep learning, and then you should go for something called as the Gen AI. The problem here is people directly jump on this and they do not go for this, and then they start facing the problems. That is where we are trying to solve the problem by giving you the end-to-end solution. It's not like we just want to go here, just call a bunch of API, create a systems, and we'll go away. Not like that. I want you to understand the things if you're building them on your own. So the right path to go through this is starting from this one. You should start with the stats, you should go with the ML, then you should go for DL, then you should go for Gen AI. And once you understand Gen AI, there is another fantastic in the world of something called as agentic AI. So today the Gen AI is building the content based on multiple agents. More on that later. I'll explain like what is the agent, how do we create our own agent in simple words later. But this is the path that one should walk if you want to be a good AI engineer. And that's why we are calling this series as From Foundations to the Real System. Now, when I say real systems, I bet most of you already are using AI in your systems or AI in your day-to-day life. Some of you might be used for generating the coding. Some of you might be using it for, let's say, generating the content. Some of you are solving the real-world problems, let's say, creating images, creating multimodals. So there are multiple real systems which are using AI today. So we will be reaching there very soon. But for this, we have to walk this particular path: stats, ML, DL, and Gen AI. So this is what the path we are going to walk through. So before we walk the actual path, let me give you a context where we are in right now and what exactly that we are about to say. So precisely when you are going for AI, it could be any branch. It could be AI, it could be agentic AI, it could be RAG, it could be Gen AI, whatever you call it as. You ultimately are under something called as a data science. So a data science, it means it's a combination of multiple different technologies come together to solve the real world problems. So there are three major techniques or technologies that are coming together to solve these problems. One of them is something called as the maths. So maths and stats, it's like the basic building block. To be honest, without stats, you cannot understand anything here, like what's happening behind the scene. So stats knowledge is very much required. So you are studying with the maths and stats basic. Not in everything in maths or not in everything in statistics. There are a few topics, I'll mention them in very soon. So these topics will help you to build the knowledge. This is from maths and stats point of view. When you are going to use the maths and stats, these algorithms will require huge amount of data to process. That huge amount of data you cannot process just by using pen or paper or something like a calculator. You need huge machines. You need the good configuration to solve that kind of problem or to process that kind of data. And that is the reason why one should have a machine learning language. You see where we are going towards, So data science is a combination of multiple different aspects of it. So here you are going to use the machine learning algorithms to use those statistical algorithms or statistical procedures or methodologies, I can call them as, in order to produce the result by processing a huge amount of data. This also requires a traditional research capabilities. I mean, not in recent years, generally people are using them because they already are leveraging the machine's power. They can directly jump on that. That's fine, but at least you should be aware about what was a traditional approach and what exactly the machine learning approach here is, which is what we will discuss very soon. Under this, you also have to have a software development knowledge. This is where we are going to use the capability of writing the same or writing the algorithms or using the algorithms using languages like Python, for example, or something like a R as well. So this is where we will require the software development knowledge, and that's why we said that the prerequisite of this entire course is the Python. That's it. You do not need anything other than that, just Python, because this is something a completely different branch. So if you know Python, you are good to start with. Then you will of course require you will require the computer science knowledge, because when you are going for huge systems, you have to go for building that application processing huge amount of data by using something like a CPU, GPU, and stuff like that. So you need to understand like how these systems work. So that's where the computer science knowledge is required. And the most important thing, if you are building an application in today's world, you have to have a particular domain knowledge of that application. Let's say if I'm working on, let's say, in a banking industry, so I have to have a domain knowledge of banking industry in order to work that well. Without this, nothing will work. Without this, few things might not work, or at least things will work, but you do not understand how they are working. Without this, you cannot develop anything, because that requires the computer science knowledge. So in all, when you are going for machine learning, or if you're going for AI, you ultimately are going towards the data science, and data science is compromising all of these aspects. So that is why we generally say that AI ML is the branch or is a subsystem of data science. So ultimately we are entering in data science now. Now, before we begin with anything, I want you to have this biggest confusion ruled out. This is generally people are having or not having the knowledge of. I mean, where AI comes in, or where ML comes in, where deep learning or DL comes in, or where Gen AI comes in. So basically, when you are learning Gen AI, I mean, people generally, as I said, generally start AI here. This is like a teeny tiny part. It's not the entire AI here. It's a teeny tiny part of entire AI. To be honest, the AI or the artificial intelligence is a very broad domain today. There are multiple different aspects of it, but this is a very broad domain that is generally considered as, you can say, the umbrella term today. So when I say AI, how does AI, or how you can define an AI? How is it getting defined? So artificial intelligence, or simply like an AI, it is a technique which enhances the machine to mimic the human behavior. Think about it. Like earlier, we were doing everything by hand. But today, let's say, for example, if I want to close the door, or if I want to shut the lights off, then I literally will have to go there and turn it off manually. This was the scenario a few years before. But now with the help of Alexa, I can say, Alexa, let's say turn this light off, or Alexa, play a good music for keeping up my mood, or giving me a better mood in that case, or maybe turn off the door, for example, or shut off the door, for example. So this guy is something called an Alexa, is solving many different problems just by doing the automation. So Alexa, being a hardware, being a machine, is mimicking human behavior by understanding my commands and acting on it, as if I'm talking to my, let's say, another friends sitting next to me and saying, hey, can you please turn off the light? So this is something I'm talking to a machine, and machine is behaving like a human. So machine is talking with me, or machine is understanding what am I saying here. So in this particular context, this is something called as the artificial intelligence, which is why it is kind of a very important umbrella term today. That's called an artificial intelligence, which is mimicking the human behavior. But have you ever wondered like how Alexa knows how to follow the commands, or how Alexa knows what kind of the commands that you are asking it to fire, or what command you are asking Alexa to take care or take an action on? How does it understand that? So in this particular context, when you say if you want Alexa to understand this, Alexa has to have the knowledge of What do you mean by turn off the light? Or what do you mean by play music? How is it possible for Alexa to do it? It is possible because developers like you and I already have written the code to make Alexa understand this entire context. That coding is done by using something called as machine learning. So artificial intelligence or AI is an umbrella term where we are asking machines to behave like humans. But to make them behave like humans, we have to program them. We have to write the code in them. That coding will be done by using machine learning. So that's what I was saying earlier also. Gen AI is a teeny tiny part, but the entire coding behind the scene is getting done by using the machine learning terms. It's a subset of AI which uses the statistical methods to enable the machines to improve the experience. I want machine to mimic the human behavior, no doubt in that. But if I want that machine to behave like a human or more like a human, enhance the user experience, this has to be done by adding the statistical methods. Statistical methods like, for example, regression, you know, or something like classification, or something like the DL, like neural network, and there are bunch of them. We'll explore all of them later as we move along. But right now, important thing here is the machine learning is just an extension to the statistical methods. Ultimately, earlier when there was no machines capable enough to produce that data or process that data, people were doing all of that stuff by hand. Of course, today also people are doing it, when the data is very small. But when the data grows, it's impossible for you to do it manually by using statistical methods. And that's where you want machine to learn on its own and produce the result. This is called as machine learning. The machine learning is a good thing when you are having a data which is something called as a structured data. Now, before we go for the deep learning, I want you to understand a few things. When you say data, generally data comes in three different types. One of them is called as a structured data. One of them is called as a semi-structured data, and another one is called as unstructured data. So there are three types of data: structured data, unstructured data, semi-structured data. Let's understand this so you can understand where the ML and where the DL goes. When you say structured data means data which follows a particular structure. For example, a data stored in a database. Let's say a data stored in a table in a database, in a SQL database, for example. So in this particular aspect, when you say I'm having SQL database table, every row in the table will have exact same number of columns. That's why it is known as a structured data. Any SQL database is a representation of a structured data. This is a structured data. It is good when you are, ML is good when you are having a data, all data which is following the structure. It's called a structured data. Let's say sometimes the data is not going to come from a database. The data will come from different type of files. So XML data, or something like a JSON data, or something like a YAML data. So when the data is not having a proper structure, of course, it's like a semi-structure. Means if you are using JSON, there is a structure in it, but it's not guaranteed. Every single row in your data is going to have the same number of columns or same number of something like the attributes out there. So this is not guaranteed, and that's why this type of data is something called as a semi-structured data. You can still use ML there. Not necessary that you have to go with some advanced concepts, but at least in this particular context, like this one or this one, still you can use ML, because ML techniques can be worked on the structured or to a certain extent semi-structured data. But when it comes to the unstructured data, now when I say unstructured, I'm referring to something like the images, very important in today's world, because that is going to give us the information that cannot be captured by using a structured data. Like, let's say my image or my photo. So if I know how my face looks like, I can start doing multiple things on top of it. I can start decorating that, or I can start finding the face in different photos. I can find out how many photos I've taken, which includes me in that case. And there are a number of use cases out there. So images. Next one, audio files, or video files. So these are called as, or these files are known as unstructured data. Now, when I say unstructured data, you cannot use ML there, because ML is not meant for it. When it comes to the unstructured data, you have to go with something called as a DL, known as a deep learning. So understand this point here. You are in the domain of artificial intelligence, but artificial intelligence is just like mimicking the human behavior by machines. If you want that machine to even do better mimicking, you are going to write the code by using machine learning. But if the data is kind of structured, semi-structured, it's good. But when the data grows, or when the data comes as unstructured, okay, unstructured here, in this particular aspect, I cannot use something like this guy here, the ML here. It's called as a unstructured data. I can't go for ML. I have to go for a neural network, which is called as a deep learning. So deep learning is a kind of a subset of machine learning, which is going to make the computation of multi-layer neural network feasible. Like our brain, which has got the neural network, which is like a billions of neurons out there, which are exchanging the signals continuously. Similar stuff happens here. This is not called a BNN. BNN stands for biological neural network, which you are having in your brain right now. So similar structure scientists got inspired from, and they created called as ANN, called as artificial neural network. And that artificial neural network can understand the unstructured data, can deal with a huge amount of data, millions and billions of records that you are having. You can't expect the ML algorithms to solve that problem. They're not meant for that. They are meant for solving a limited amount of data, a structured data or semi-structured data. But data is unstructured, data is huge. You can't go for ML, you have to go for deep neural network, or it's called as a DL, deep learning, it is known as. In that, we are going to use ANN, or artificial neural network. This artificial neural network, which is like a multi-layer, it's called as a ANN, artificial neural network, which is going to solve this unstructured data problem. And finally, in deep learning, there is a small subset which is called a Gen AI, which is mainly used for generating the new contents. If you want to go for prediction, if you want to go for classification, if you want to go for detection, deep learning is good. But if you want to generate something, deep learning alone can't solve that problem. You need to take the help of some large language models, LLM. Those are kind of included in the next subset called as a generative AI. So it is a subset of AI that created a new content like text, images, music, so on and so forth, even the video as well. So when you are going for something called as the generative AI, you are generating the contents. So basically, the main job here is called as the content generation. And when I say content generation, this content will be of type text, images, and music. So when you are leveraging the deep learning's neural network to generate the contents, this particular leveraging is known as the Gen AI. So Gen AI includes the content generation with the help of something called as large language model, or LLM it is known as. In short, when you are going for something like the artificial network, artificial intelligence, this is a kind of a broader term. This is like an umbrella term today. Subset of it is called as a machine learning. Subset of it is called as a deep learning. Subset of it is called as a Gen AI. And subset of Gen AI, I couldn't fit that in the diagram, but subset of Gen AI is called as something like an agentic AI. So basically, we want to reach to that subset, but you can understand the subset can be reached not directly from here. We have to go through this particular path, and that's exactly the right path to understand what is an agentic AI. Okay, let me repeat myself one more time. Artificial intelligence means machines mimicking human behavior. Machine learning is the way of coding with which we want to enhance the experience of mimicking the humans by machine. Deep learning solves the problems of unstructured data as well as the huge amount of data by leveraging the power of artificial neural network. And finally, the Gen AI, which is a subset of deep learning, which uses ANN along with something called as a LLM, large language model, in order to generate the content. So these are the four different terms. People generally are confused about what exactly they are learning. So even if you say you are learning AI, that's still okay. Even if you are saying ML, you still are in the right context. There is nothing wrong about saying AI, ML, DL, or Gen AI. All of them are related. These are the connections, you can say, they are establishing with each other. That's how it is. Don't worry, I'll explain how the ANN architecture is. What do you mean by multi-layer? What do you mean by perceptrons or single layer perceptron, multi-layer perceptrons, something called the CNN, something called an RNN, GRU, LSTM, transformers. All of these things will come into picture. Don't worry, I'll explain every single thing, but not on the day one, Otherwise, what will happen? You will not get the context. So it's better we can just go through the topic day by day. It's like gradually we'll go to that line. But all of these things which I'm mentioning right now will be covered later. So do not worry about that. Gen AI is not different than LLM. Gen AI uses LLM to generate the content. Of actually speaking, in deep learning, this ANN has got another type called as an RNN. It's called a recurrent neural network. It has a capability of generating the next word, which got not converted, I would say, but which got enhanced with the help of something called as the transformers. More on that later. But these transformers led us to something called as LLM, and that created a separate category called as generative AI. So LLM is not different than generative AI. LLM is used in generative AI in order to generate the contents, and LLM uses transformers. Transformer is a next version, or you can say next generation, GRU plus LSTM. GRU plus LSTM are the next generations of RNN, and RNN is a type of ANN. So this is like a connection that we can establish here. So this is something called as the relationship between the AI, machine learning, ML, DL, deep learning, and something called as Gen AI. Okay, so this is what we are going to, walk the path along. Before we talk about what exactly that we are going to learn in this entire stuff, I wanted to understand a few things. These are the projects that we'll be building. So this is like a categories we are having. Like in machine learning, we'll be creating a small project called the predicting house prices for customer churn prediction. We'll explain that in a second. In natural language processing or NLP, which is what the Alexa uses behind the scene to understand what you are saying, or all those devices like LLM also, it uses this NLP power to understand what question you are asking, and based on what question you are asking, it generates the content. So NLP is very important when it comes to something called as the LLM out there. So we'll be developing an application called the sentiment analysis. I'll explain all of these projects in a second. I'll give the demos of them as well, and then we'll see like how to build these applications out there. In deep learning section, we'll be going with image classification, cats versus dogs. Then we'll go for YOLO, you only live once. That's called the YOLO. It's a very nice package used for object detection. I'll show you the demo of this in a second. The content generation, we are going to create a very simple and very straightforward application where you can upload your resume and the job description and go for creating a cover letter. You can send this to those people so those can understand like what exactly you are looking for, and probably you might end up getting a job. So that's content generation example here. This is very important in today's world. This is called a RAG pipeline, retrieval augmented generation it is known as. We'll be developing a simple application called as a chat with PDF, SQL, and CSV. You upload any type of values out, any type of files out there, and you can keep asking the questions, and based on that, you will get an answer. Again, a demo. A hotel reservation conversation chatbot. It's like, again, a very simple example where you can understand how to write an application to solve the real world problem. Like if you want to go for hotel reservation system, which is using the QA, question answering, this will be again using or leveraging the RAG pipeline. And this is kind of very real world example that we'll see in a second. And finally, this is a huge, I don't say huge, but it's kind of an enterprise ready application, a production ready application, which is like enterprise chat application using the RAG pipeline. This is an enhanced version of chat with PDF. I'll show you the demos here so you can understand what exactly we are going to build, and we'll see like how we can build that. Okay. So this is what we will be building along the path while we are walking the path. So let me go to that directory, demos. So these are the, the demos that I'll be kind of developing or will be kind of developing along the path. Let me go with the simple example number 1. So it is like 01 house price prediction. Now, if you go to this house price prediction in this particular aspect, if you look at this one, this is called as house price prediction kind of a project, which requires you to understand how to use simple machine learning. This is the ML project, So if you look at this ML project, this is like app.py. I'll explain all these things later, so do not worry about that. This is exactly what we are going to build together, So here we'll be developing a linear regression model, ridge regression, lasso regression. Both of them are called as the regularization technique to avoid overfitting. More on that later. We'll be creating a decision tree algorithm or decision tree model, random forest and gradient boosting. Both of them are ensemble techniques. So this is what we'll be building an application here, which is very simple, which is going to take this data in. This is a housing.csv data. This data will be passed and understand, like, or machine learning will understand what kind of data that you are having, and based on the data, it will generate or it will predict the price of it, which is very straightforward application. Let me show you running this application. Almost all the almost all the applications are having the UI, which are kind of developed by using a library called the Streamlit. And over the period, we'll be learning Streamlit from scratch. So this is how you will run this application, Streamlit run app.py. When you run this application, it's automatically going to open in a browser. And this is what the application looks like, California house price prediction. Now, as I showed you in the code, we are developing multiple models. Think about model as just a formula, So this formula, this is like housing price prediction, something like IPI-NB. This is where the model is going to get built, So this is like it's called the Jupyter notebook. This is where we'll be cleansing the data, we'll be kind of training the entire model, not once. We'll be developing this kind of 5 different models out there. This is what we'll be doing, all of these things one by one, step by step, along the the different sessions out there. So this is what we will be doing it. And if you can see here, this is where we are building all the models together. So linear regression model, ridge regression model, lasso regression model, decision tree regression, or something like a random forest regression. The name of the class is called the regressor, but the regression is the technique which is going to generate the future values of it. So this is the model generation code, and this is the model consumption code. The consumption will be done by using UI. Like, for example, I can select a model here. Like if I select the linear regression, the model will give me a 0.59. This is called as a matrix. This will tell you how good your data is, or how good your result is, not data, how good your result is. So 0.59, it's the understanding here is, if it is going towards 0, it's very bad. If it is going towards 1, it's very good. So 0.59, it's neither good nor bad. It's like middle, you can say. This is the MSE, or RMSE and MAE. These are errors which we are generating here. Root mean squared error it is known as, and mean absolute error it is known as. So this model, or this formula that we are going to build by using the data which I showed you, is kind of having this much of error. So if you are getting a result, like for example, this is the data that I've understood, and based on that, let's say I want to purchase a home somewhere with the latitude, longitude, the population of that area somewhere here, or the households, like these are different households available, or the median house age, like how old the house is, or what is the median income of a particular person there, how many total rooms you are looking for. These many rooms, what do I do with that? 5 is more than sufficient. The ocean proximity, whether you want to go for nearby ocean, or maybe you can say inland, or island you want to go for, something like that. And total bedroom 129. What the heck am I going to do with that? 1 bedroom is more than sufficient for us. So probably if I go and say predict the price, this model will be used, this formula will be used, and based on the data which I'm expecting from user, the price of a particular home with this particular criteria will reach around $380,000, roughly around $380,000. So this is what we are kind of building. It's very simple, straightforward, but it will give an idea about how to use the machine learning algorithm to build this particular formula. Model is a formula. Now, along with linear regression, we can also go for ridge regression and do the same job. So it is also giving me different value. Look at that. I can go for any of them, like decision tree regressor. Oh, decision tree regressor has got a better R-square. That means this is going to perform better than previously selected two. If I go for the gradient boosting, oh, look at that. Gradient boosting is going towards 1. This is the best model out of all, I believe. Random forest is 0.77, and the gradient boosting, it's 0.79. So it's very good. So the value that I'm going to do here, I'm going to calculate here. I think it's not a bit generator model. It's okay, that I can understand. The values are not particularly calibrated out there. It's okay. So we can go for predicting the values by using different algorithms. And then I can see the more accurate result model by model. This is called as house price prediction. Very simple, but at the same time very powerful to understand how we are going to use that data. How do we cleanse the data? How do we use that data in order to build the different models? This is our first project. This is what the first project here is. No, this is not the temperature used here. Temperature is not used in this particular aspect. Temperature is used in something called the LLM, Siddhant, So that's not the LLM used here. That's why temperature is not used here. It is not, that was not a temperature, it's called as a R2 value, R squared value. More on that, maybe in the next week, when we'll talk about something as ML algorithm, I'll explain like what do you mean by RMSE, what do you mean by R2 score, and so on and so forth. So that's not the temperature, don't get it wrong. Okay. RMSE stands for root mean squared error, Shubham. So that's what you need to understand. Right now, don't worry about this. We'll be talking about all of this thing in details. I'll explain what are the metrics available and how do we do that in details later. So that's our first project called as house price prediction based on the data that we are having. The next one is like the customer churn prediction. Churn prediction means you want to understand if the customer is going to leave a particular company. Let's say, for example, you are having a bank account and bank wants to know whether you want to lose that account or whether you want to close the account and want to choose another bank. That's called the churning, So whether the customer will kind of, leave the organization, leave the bank or leave whatever that company that you are dealing with or not, this can be found out by using churn modeling. Again, this is the data that we already are having. This data maybe around, let's say around 10,000 records available there. And I want to use this record. I want to use these records in order to go for creating different models. So this is the Jupyter notebook. You can see customer churn prediction. Again, we are kind of building a different type of models out there. So if you just scroll here, you can see logic regression. By the way, when I say churn prediction, the answer is either yes or no. Whether the customer will leave the company or leave the bank, the answer could be yes or no. That's why it is called a classification. More on that later. So this could be logistic regression or random forest classifier, gradient boosting classifier, decision tree classifier, k nearest neighbor classifier, SVC, support vector classifier. There are so many options available out there. So we are building all of these models out there, and those models will tell me whether the customer will leave the particular company or particular bank. This is related to the bank. So in this particular aspect, we are again, you want to use this library called the Streamlit. And again, Streamlit is mainly used for adding some UI there. So again, I can say Streamlit run app.py. This will open the application again in the browser. This is the list of models. Earlier, I was using R2 score because that was a regression example. This is the classification example. So here we are getting the accuracy, precision, recall, F1 score, ROC, AUC. I'll explain all of these things in details as we move along. Don't worry about that. So this is the input that I'm taking. This is the bank. So how much credit that you are having, how much balance you are having in your account, how many number of products you are using from the bank, so on and so forth. So if I say prediction, means tell me if the customer with this particular data will leave the bank or not. So if I click on that, based on the model that I'm using, logistic regression, it says that the customer is likely to stay. So customer is not going to leave. And what's the probability? The churn probability is 18%. That means there is a less probability the customer will go away. That means more probability is to customer is going to stay here. That means the answer is based on either yes or no. So more probability is based on the stay, and that's why the final answer is the stay. This is called as probabilistic model. This is going to tell me the probability of yes or no. Whichever is having the higher probability is my final answer. This is done by logistic regression. This can also be done by random forest. This is called an ensemble technique. Have you noticed something? Logistic regression is having an accuracy of 0.8, means 80% accuracy it is having. So the answer that I got here, it is 80% accurate. This is something like it is telling me yes, but again, there is a 20% error we have to consider. If I go for something like random forest is 86% accurate. So if I predict the churn, it also says, okay, it's stay. I mean, the customer will stay. So both of them are saying the same thing. If I go for something like gradient boosting, look at that. Gradient boosting is even better than that, So if I look at the prediction, it is again, because for this, we have to go for calibration. I've not done it. That's the reason why it is giving me error. No problem. We'll see that later. Decision tree is a tree-based algorithm. This also is saying likely yes, and this is the 100% accuracy, or not accuracy, but 100% it is saying yes, this is going to be, this customer is going to stay here. Again, you can go for k nearest neighbor, or you can go for SVM. That also requires some kind of calibration. If I go for SVM, I see the answer is going to be yes. So most of the models are saying yes, that means my customer will stay. So based on the data that I provided here, the customer with this data is going to stay in the bank. It's the customer will not leave, customer is not churn. So that's what the answer understanding that we are having. Again, most of the models that I'm showing you here will be building again from scratch with all understanding of it. What do you mean by accuracy? What do you mean by precision? What do you mean by recall? When should you go for when should you go for precision? When should you thinking? When should you think about the recall? When should you give importance to either one of them? What do you mean by F1 score? All of that stuff we'll see one by one. So do not worry about this. I'm just showing you what kind of demos that we'll be building along the path. These are the examples. More on that will be kind of developing together later. The next demo is a sentiment analysis. This is something like 03, and this is based on RNN. So if I go back here, this is the dataset that we'll be using. IMDb dataset. This has got more than 50,000 movie reviews, and whether it is positive or negative. So this movie review is positive. The next movie review could be negative, so on and so forth. This is also positive. This is also positive. So basically, over the period, these guys, IMDb, have open source that data set, which is having almost 50,000 reviews. So what we are doing here, we are going to build a formula, which is called a model in case of machine learning, which will understand this, like this is the sentiment and that is a positive. And based on this understanding, I want to ask this guy, if I put a new movie review, what is it? Is it a positive or is it a negative or is it a neutral? This is called as sentiment classification or sentiment analysis. So if you go to this is the UI part of it, because I'm going to use a Streamlit on that. This is the model consumption. This is the training model. Now, if you look at this, we are going to use something called a PyTorch, very industry standard, which is going to be used for developing the ANN application. Precisely, this is going to use something called an RNN. RNN stands for recurrent neural network. All of these things which I'm mentioning here will be developing from scratch again, in details. So this is not the end of the story. This is the beginning of a new story. So I'm just telling you like what exactly that we are going to build over the period, So this is the RNN. It's called the recurrent neural network, which is used for mainly the sequential data or something like a time series data, So you can see this is the code to build the entire model. This is called the RNN model. The RNN can be developed by using one of the two options as well. This is like a plain RNN. This is called the GRU, gated recurrent unit, it is known as. And LSTM, long short-term memory, it is known as. So we'll be developing all of them again from scratch, understanding the architecture of them. Now, let me just go back here because I already have built the models. You can see the models already have been built. So I can directly go back here and run this by again using Streamlit run app. All of them are having the GUI. GUI is important for us to test the application. Now, this is movie review. Understand this. I'm going to use the RNN, which has got accuracy of 64%, and I can type a review here. For example, if I just go back and grab one of the reviews out there, this is not good, but let's see. Let's say a wonderful title production. I think it's better for me to just copy and paste it and understand whether it's a positive or negative, or whether it's a neutral. So when I say analyze the sentiment, it says that it is a positive statement and it is 83.3% confident on this particular result. Now, what do you mean by the confidence here? We'll talk about that later. This is RNN. I can do the same job with the GRU, gated recurrent unit, it is known as. And I can do the same thing with LSTM. So almost all of them are kind of saying the positive. This guy is a little bit less confident, but still the answer is positive. These are the sample reviews that you can directly load because it's like a huge amount of the data that you are having. You can load one of them and then you can find out the sentiment of it. Sentiment means whether it's a positive, negative, or neutral. So that's called a sentiment analysis. I'll explain all of this thing because it requires NLP to understand the data. That's why this is kind of put under this particular part. It's called as a NLP demo, sentiment analysis on the movie reviews, which are given by something like a IMDb. Okay. Now, deep learning, image classification. Not sure about this one. It's like not so good because the data that we are using at the moment is not too much, or it's not that going to be accurate here, but I'll show you that anyways. So this is going to be the data that we'll be kind of using here. One sec. It goes on the other monitor here. Okay. So this is what we'll be doing right now. This is going to use a data. If you look at this one, there are many images out there, and those are kind of cats and dogs. So these are the images of cats and dogs, and I want to create a model by using something called as CNN, convolutional neural network. Since the images are not that good quality, or you can say this is like a huge amount of data, but still that's not enough to create a better accuracy. Let's see how much maybe the accuracy that we will get here. So if I go back here and run again Streamlit run app.py, this is where we'll be kind of loading an image. So it is asking me to drag a image here. I'm going to use one of the images of the same directory here. This is going to be like code Amit ML version 3. That's what here we are. Demos 04. This is like images. I'm going to copy that. One of the images out there. I think, what is it? This is the cat. So let me go back here and load a cat and see what exactly it is. So based on this image, what it is saying, it says the prediction. Oh, wow. This is kind of saying English Cocker Spaniel. I think this is going to be something like a cat, I believe. So this is telling me the image that you have uploaded here is of a kind of a cat. So this is the cat species. That's what it is saying. It says too many indices in array, positive dimension, but one very indexes. Don't worry about that. But this is kind of telling me this is a kind of a cat with this particular we can say breed here. So if I look at this bit, that's not a breed of a cat. This is a breed of a dog. I think it has very low accuracy right now. That is the reason. That's what I said. Because this image is kind of I mean, it looks like cat or dog. I think the image got the model got confused. It is saying it is saying it is a dog. Let me try one more time, maybe with different image. Let's see, what does it say? That looks like a very bad cat. Can we see a good cat? That also is a good one. That is also a good one. That is also a good one. Let's try this one. Let's see what it says. What it is. Okay, it's saying the same thing here. It is having a very low confidence. That's why it is kind of saying me, oh, that's a low confidence here. But it is kind of saying that it is either cat or dog. Right now, the model that we are building is having a very less images. Maybe once you are done with that, you can pass a huge amount of data and this will be more accurate. In machine learning, this is something you should understand. More the data that you are having, more the accurate result here is. Because of the space and because of the time, I'm using a very less images for now. But when you're going for a huge amount of data, definitely your accuracy will increase. This is like the Google Lens application. You can pass you can pass a application. You can pass a photo and it understands what kind of photo that you are having. The next one will blow your mind. This is called as the object detection. And I love this one. This will tell you like what exactly in the images are. This is what it is using right now. It's called as this is called a YOLO. YOLO is given by Ultralytics, and this is what it's going to detect an object here. And I can tell you that this is going to be very fantastic. Application is very small because YOLO is a pre-built model. You're not going to build anything out there. You're going to use it. So probably if I go back again, say Streamlit run app.py, let's see what does it do. And it's very fantastic, So I'm going to drag one of the images out there. I think I already have a couple of images already downloaded. So I'm going to use one of them. Let's use this one. This is an image which is having many different objects here. There's a person here, there's a person here, there's a person here. So if I use this image will be passed to, okay, let's see, something has missed, I believe. Let's go back, install this. This is the version problem, but it's okay. We can take care of it immediately. And let's try this one more time. Let's see if it does. Okay. Will you? Too many things running on my machine, I believe. Hey, finally. So let's do that now and see if it works. If I select this, image mixin, get an unexpected keyword, augment, use container. I think it is because my okay, Python 3 side package library runtime could be my yeah, this is because of my maybe the version conflict. Let me try another image if it works. This is a very fantastic demo I've built earlier, but it seems like some of the other conflicts have been done. That's the reason why it is not working. It would have worked. You would have seen. Okay, maybe I'll have to fix it. That's an image mixing problem. That means there is a problem with the library that we are using right now. Seems like one of the libraries have got conflicts. That's the reason why it is not working. Anyways, we can fix that later. Not a big deal. Let me go back to the another one. This is the Gen AI problem. This calls the resume generator. Here this is again we are leveraging the fact or leveraging the power of LLM. So let me open this one, show you what exactly that it is. This is again using a streamlet where you are going to use a OpenAI. OpenAI, you know all of that. OpenAI ChatGPT. So we are going to use OpenAI's model and do the job. So this is a kind of a demo where you are kind of leveraging the API. Oh wow, that's something is kind of a problem from my end, I believe. Somewhere it is corrupted. Oh wow, it was working earlier. Wonderful. I must have checked it, but let me try this again. Stimulate run API. No, it seems like this is my version. This is like OpenAI requires a get environment key. Okay, let me try this one more time and let's see if it fixes the problem. Okay, so going back here, load env.env. This is the API key that is also there. Let's try this one more time and see. Okay, one more time. Let's start with this Streamlit run API. Now it is looking for that API key only. One sec. Wow, that's a funny thing. It was working all of them earlier, but it seems like someone has got the problem. Let's see if it works that way. This is the hard coding. It's not good, but let's see if it works. Oh, it is not. What it is saying? HTTP sync wrapper. This is like a problem from this particular guy. Okay. So while building the other application, seems like my dependencies have got corrupted. That is the only reason why it is not working. It is finding some libraries, but it is not working. Anyways, it means none of my other projects will work now. I'll have to fix the dependencies of that. I think I can do that later. It's not a big deal. But these are the projects that will be developing. One second. Let me see if the other project works. If this does not work, that means the other one will also not work. But let me try. Streamlit run app.py. Will you please work this way? Oh, that's working. This is the huge application. This one we'll have to check the dependencies now, but you can see that this is the next one. It's called the rack pipeline chat with PDF, which I mentioned last time. This is where you can upload the PDF file or CSV file or the SQL file, which is going to use the OpenAI and start asking the questions here. Let me show you a small demo of it. This is where the temperature concepts comes in. We'll see that in a second. Let me browse a file. Maybe I'm going to go back to my downloads and search for my resume here. Downloading. Can I see some of the files out there here? One second, it's not SQL. I'm looking for PDF file. That's why it's not allowing me to select it. Okay, so let me go back here, and this is downloads. I'm going to search with my profile here. So this is my profile. I'm going to process that PDF file. That's what the problem here is. This is the dependency problem only. Just a second. Line number this one. All of them are working behind the scene. Wow. This is kind of giving me an error only. Yes. Now this is the Streamlit API, Streamlit UI. Don't worry about that. That's a Streamlit API that we are using to build this UI. This is the problem from open embedding OpenAI key. That means running script. It's kind of the dependencies issues. Okay, all of these APIs are kind of corrupted with the version that am I using right now. One second, guys. Let me see if it solves the problem by installing the new version, but it is kind of already installed. Hopefully that will solve the problem. Let's see. Okay, so let's upload the file one more time and see if it solves the problem. I'm going to use this one, process. Oh yeah, it's working. So that was a dependency problem. Hopefully that got solved. You can see I've uploaded a file and this file has got kind of used here. Now, based on this file, I can ask any damn question. Like, for example, this is my resume. So I can say, who is Amit Kulkarni? So based on the context I've given, it is going to ask LLM, OpenAI, and probably it says, wow, it does not know the answer. No problem. I can ask some other question. Let's say, which, maybe I can say certifications completed by Amit. Let's see if answers the questions or not. It's thinking. Oh yeah, look at that. So precisely, I've completed these certifications like CKA, CKAD, CJE, so on and so forth. It has understood my resume, the one which I have supplied here, and based on this, it's it's answering my questions. Okay, another question. Where is Amit living? Let me see if it can answer the question. I think I've included my address. Oh, it is not. Address isn't available there. What is the phone number of Amit? Hopefully, I've not have it. What is the email address? Do I have it? Address of Amit. I don't remember. Don't know. I mean, it does not have it. What do I have then? So if I look at this, Amit, here it is. This is the profile I can see here. What is there? Okay, profession. That's the reason why it is not able to give my answers here. Address is not available. The phone number is not available. So you can see, which is what you can see. Everything is working as expected. Since that file does not have the information, it cannot answer those questions, right? If I ask another question based on the file, like for example, what are the key achievements of this file? What are the key achievements of Amit? Because the achievements are already been given here, look at that, it will be able to answer that question. So it's thinking, that means it is understanding the entire data, and you can see that this has understood my file, this has understood my profile, and it has given me the very key constraints of it. So this is exactly what you call it as a RAG. The RAG means retrieval augmented generation. This is the learn bot. This is where you can upload any damn file, let's say a book file, for example. And if you are finding some topic difficult, you can ask a question and get the answer. I bet you must have used a notebook LLM. This is a kind of miniature of a notebook LLM. So this is what something called as a RAG pipeline is used for. This is a chat with PDF. The same thing can be done with the SQL file. Same thing can be done with the CSV file as well. But right now we are using only the PDF file. This is called as chat with PDF. Now, hopefully it has started working because of the conflicts. Earlier, I could not show you the demo of it. Let me show and let me go back here and show you if this works. This is going to be my Streamlit API again. This is the resume creator. That is working right now. See, that was a conflict of the library that I was using. No worries. I'm going to upload my resume. Watch what happens here. In this case, I'll be uploading my resume. I'll be uploading, maybe you can call it as a job description. Now, do I have a job description? No, I don't have a job description. I can go back here and generate one. This is offline LLM. I'm using here with the help of something as a LM Studio. More on that later. I'll explain all of these things later. Maybe I can say generate a description or generate a job description for a company named, let's say, Sunbeam, to hire a DevOps person or DevOps engineer with, let's say, 10 years of experience. Watch what happens now. We are generating a simple job description. So the input for this application is the resume and job description. So if I put the job description and resume, it will give me a cover letter that I can send along with my resume to the companies. So it's kind of creating a dummy requirement. So this like job description, company, location, blah, 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 blah. I should have said the location is going to be Pune, but it's all right. So I'm going to copy here and paste it inside this. Maybe I'll just go back here and say the location is Pune. So I have got two things here, my resume and the job description. This job description could be copied from LinkedIn, for example, and then I can go back here. You can also see what kind of extracted resume information that you can get here. This is the information that we have found out from the resume, and then I can generate the cover letter. So when I say generating the cover letter, based on the job description, whatever that you are going to add here, based on your resume, it finds out, okay, this person has the matching skill of this particular job description. So it is generating a content letter or covering letter according to it. So it is saying that, dear hiring manager, my experience, blah, 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 DevOps engineer. See, it has understood. We are looking for DevOps engineer. Position at Sunbeam. It has understood that Sunbeam is the company for which we have to send this covering letter, as advertised. With over a decade of experience in DevOps. Have you understood? Here I said the company is looking for a DevOps engineer of 10 years experience, So in this particular aspect, it has said I have decades of experience, and so on and so forth. Now, if I change the requirement, it is also going to change the wordings of my cover letter. This is not a magic. It's like we are using the Gen AI. This is what I was talking about earlier, So what is this? This is the AI resume and cover letter generator. This is done by using the content generation. This is the Gen AI project. This one, the image classification, which I showed you, that was a very simple CNN project. I'll show you one more time. We'll see that object detection, that also is a deep learning project. But this one here is a generation. That means it comes under Gen AI. The generation which will be using your content will be done by using a RAG pipeline. That also is a Gen AI. So this is a project that I was talking about for the Gen AI. This is called as the resume creator. Similarly, this resume creator and the other one, something like the RAG demo, both of them are the part of Gen AI. The hotel chart also is a part of Gen AI. Let me show you that also very quickly. These are all small projects that we'll be building along the path to learn, or this is like a milestone for us. Now, this is a dummy hotel I've created. It's like a Sunny Meadows resort, which is going to have this kind of information. I can chat with this guy. I can book a room, or I can also see some other questions being answered. Like, for example, I can go for a chat with us and say, what are the amenities? What are the amenities? Amenities provided for you or provided for the customers, and so on and so forth. So this information is coming from a file. Let me just go back here and show you. So if I go for, again, the code, if I go for the code, again, this is demos and this is the hotel chatbot. So you can understand this information is coming from a file. So if I look at this, there is a file I've created. Hotel, this is the SQLite database that we are having, and this is the file I've created. This is the dummy file I've created or generated by using LLM rather. So this is where we are getting the room types. There are 3 types of rooms available: standard room with a double bed, and a suite. These are the amenities: outdoor pool, fitness center, blah blah blah. So have you seen? It has already answered my question based on the file, based on the profile I provided. This is an extension to the RAG. This is also a RAG. That's why I mentioned that under something as a RAG pipeline. So this is hotel reservation system and chat with PDF. Both of them will be using your files as the content. If I want to know like what kind of rooms are available, I can simply ask the question. You don't have to worry about anything. Just say what kind of rooms available, or which category rooms are available. Just ask any question, because it's LLM, it can understand what you are saying. And see, it has already answered my question based on the file, based on the profile, the dummy profile I've created. It has answered my question. This is an example of LLM again. I mean, it is using the RAG pipeline with the help of LLM, and you can ask any other questions. I can also create a booking based on book a room. I can provide my information and I can book a room as well. There are many different options available here. You can start with this. Let's say, for example, new booking. So it is asking me what is my email address. I can say amit@sunbeaminfo.com, for example. So I can submit my email. It'll ask me to enter my first name, last name, the email address, the password. Let's say this is the last name, the phone number 1234123412. For example, the address here is Pune. Now, if I register myself, I can see that this is my registration. I don't want to save that. This is my registration. I'm going to start with this check-in date to this checkout date. I'm going to book a number of guests, 1, and this is like the information that is going to be automatically provided by the program. It's not hard coded. This is all information coming from the LLM here. So I want to book this particular suite for, let's say, a couple of days, and I can say check availability and book. So it says booking confirmed, and you can see everything is kind of done in one single demo. All of this information that you saw earlier, getting this information like email address or all this other information, everything is being generated by LLM. So this is a little bit advanced demo. This is where we are kind of leveraging the RAG, but generating the dynamic UI. This is called as hotel reservation conversation chatbot. And this is the cherry on a cake. It's the extension of RAG, but this is the enterprise ready application or production ready application where we are using a code behind. It's called the backend, which is developed using fast AI, and UI. It's not Streamlit, but it is a professional HTML like UI. Let me show you this example here. That's the last example, or this is like the last project that we'll be using. You can see that behind the scene, it is making all the API calls or doing the databases call or performing the SQL, the SQL queries and all of that stuff. Behind the scene, it does everything on its own. I don't have to worry about that. And this is the last one, enterprise ready chatbot. This has got two things, as I mentioned. One is the backend somewhere here, which has got, the entire backend running here, which is using something called a fast API. We'll be talking about that very soon. And the last one here is, the UI here is something like index or HTML. So this is this is like a GUI, which is generally called the front end. So I'm going to go back to the backend here and say Streamlit run API. I'm sorry, it's not a Streamlit, my bad. It's going to be like Python. I'm sorry, Python, something like an app.py. What is that? I'm sorry, it's main.py. It's not Python application. Let's start with the main.py. It will take a minute or two. And once it is done, it will start my backend application. 8,000 is already running. Somewhere it is already running. Let me see where it is running. LSOF -I 8,000. Okay, it's running here. Let me kill this. This is like 84917. Don't worry about that. Let's run this application now. And let me show you how does it look like. This is a production ready. You can directly write the similar type of applications and directly start running in the production. So this is where I can start with localhost 8,000. And you will see this is like a professional grade UI, So you can do the same job. The application name is called a DocuChat, and you can do the same job that I did earlier. You can upload the files and you can start the UI. You can start the, you can start asking the questions here. So if I directly drag and drop the file that I showed you earlier, this is the one. So the file gets dropped. You see 12 to 42 chunks. More on that later. But now you can start asking the questions like, what are the certifications, or what are the key achievements, or simply we'll call it an achievement now, achievements of Amit. Okay, so I can directly go back and ask the question, and you can see the answer is being populated here. This is, why we are creating a separate application here is because this is where we'll not only show the answer, but we also show the source as well, from which file it is coming from. When you're having multiple files here, it will tell you this is the file I've taken into consideration while answering this question. And this is what the information that it has found in that file, and that is what it is used for generating this content. So it says that this is the references. Click to expand, so you can see this is my reference 1, this is my reference 2, the other chunks that it is using right now, and so on and so forth. So this is a kind of, you can say, extension to the RAG, but this is a little bit production oriented. It means in production or in the real world, you want to know from which file I'm reading this content to generate my answer. So this is kind of doing the same job here. Again, we'll be developing this final demo towards the end of the entire course, but this is a kind of directly, you can put it inside the production because it has got the sources and the references as well. This is called as the DocuChat for us. So it's called the enterprise level application. So these are the projects that we'll be developing. I think one project I missed and I wanted to run that, but I got some error last time. Hopefully after installing the newer version of it, it would work. Now I'm talking about this object detection, So if this works, you can see the power of YOLO. Let's see if it solves the problem. If it stalls, I think that's great. Let's cross our fingers, and yeah, it worked. Now this time, look at that. This is the image I've uploaded. What does that say? Detection complete. In a sense, it has detected many different objects inside it. Which objects? The backpack, handbag, person, and so on and so forth. Let me zoom in so you can understand. It has identified these objects from that image. Have you noticed it? There's a person here. On top of it, it says what kind of object it has detected, along with what is the confidence. So it's like 96% confidence that this is the person. Again, 46% confident that this is the person. Maybe 0.27, 27% confident that this is a handbag. It's really in a handbag. This is the backpack. You can see it's 30% confident that this is the backpack. See how that YOLO is kind of doing the job. So basically, this is a kind of object detection. I think I'll go for one more example. Let me just go back, removing it here, and look at the another one. This one here. So this is also kind of detecting it. This is the original image you can see, which is not having anything other than that. And if I click on this one, this has detected, oh, this is the person, this is the person. That's a bicycle. Look at that. There's a bicycle here. There's a handbag. There's a handbag. There's an umbrella, or probably, I think, okay, these the, objects it has detected. And you can literally download any image. You can pass it there. And it will directly give you all the objects it has detected. This is done by using a framework called as YOLO. This is called the You Only Live Once. That's the name of it. I mean, I love this because, here you do not have to create any model. You don't have to take the hard part. The hard part is already been taken by these guys. These guys, they already have created the model. You're just consuming the model. But believe me, when it comes to object detection, this is the best model you can try. YOLO, it is known as. I mean, you can really develop an application like Google Lens. You can pass any object and it will detect. So that's why YOLO is considered as a gold standard when it comes to object detection. And we'll understand the theory behind it, like how does it do that, how the object is being detected, how you can put, the borders behind, or borders around that. This border isn't available here. So you have to create the borders. How do we do all of that stuff? We'll be learning every single thing right in this course. Okay. So these are, we can call them as the capstone projects we'll be developing along the way. I mean, it's not like we will be keep on developing only these. There are many different demos we will be going with, but these are, you can call them as the milestones for us. Like, for example, when we complete the first part, ML, we'll start developing these two. When we complete and NLP, we'll complete this one. When we'll complete deep learning, we'll complete these two, so on and so forth. So that's how we'll keep on developing these projects. These are the projects that we'll be developing along the path. Okay. Don't worry about this. We will be developing every damn thing and I'll explain every single line of code. It's not like I'll have to explain. We'll have to write every single line of code here in the class. So don't worry. And if you are interested, you can also write the code along with me. I'll share my code and you can also start writing it if you are interested here. Fine. So is there any project regarding the agentic AI? To be honest, no. In this case, we are going to go for MCP server. One of the projects that we will be developing, the chat application, will convert this later into agentic AI, but that will be using MCP, not more than that, because there's a separate course we are bringing up to go through the entire path of agentic AI. There we can discuss every damn thing in details, like what are the agents, how do you go for agent orchestration, and so on and so forth. So Swaraj, this one here, the last example, enterprise application, which is an example built on top of rack pipeline, will convert it with agentic AI, but it will be to the introduction level only. If you want to go for understanding the more into agentic AI, if you want to enter in the world of agentic AI, there's a separate course for that. Don't worry. Will you learn MCP? And of course, MCP is what we are going to see here. N8N is not in this one. N8N is the next part. There you can understand how the N8N can be used for doing some similar jobs, but with no coding. So there's a separate course for that. This calls the N8N. But MCP, yes, we are going to learn here in this course. Hold on. I'll answer all of your questions one by one. Okay, so this is how we will start with it. As I said, we have to develop all these projects. So to develop all the projects, we have to go through this particular path. We'll start here. We'll start with the statistics starting from tomorrow. We'll understand the foundations, as I said. Then we'll start with the machine learning, which is dependent upon statistics. If you remember what I said, machine learning is just an extension to the statistics. Those people who know statistics, they can easily learn ML. Those people who learn ML or who understand ML, they can easily write the code in the DL, deep learning, by using ANN, RNN, CNN, transformers, LSTM, GRU, and all of that stuff. When it comes to the transformers, when you go for something called as LLM, you are entering in the new world called as Gen AI. So that's our path. So here we'll begin with the statistics, then we'll go for machine learning, then we'll go for deep learning, and then we'll finish the entire course with the Gen AI. That's the last part of our course. Now, if I want to start with the statistics, what different things are we going to learn here? Many of you are asking the question, are we learning this? Are we learning that? So on and so forth. So let me clarify this here once and for all. So when you are going for this statistical part, we'll be learning few important topics of statistics. I'm again telling you, we are not going to be statisticians after after finishing this course, and that's not the target here. That's not the goal here, and that's what not you are here for. We are learning the statistics foundation. That means You will learn only those topics which are required to understand the ML here. So these are the major topics. We'll start with something called as the statistical foundations. Now, when I say statistical foundation, the main thing that we'll discuss here is something called as the measures. There are multiple types of measures, like measures of central tendency, measures of variations, measures of asymmetry, measures of relationship, so on and so forth, like mean, mode, median, variance, standard deviation, correlation coefficient, Carl Pearson, Pearson's correlation coefficient. There are multiple options available there. This will give you how you can understand the data. Because when it comes to the statistics, there are two types of statistics, or there are two, you can say, the ways you can use a statistics. One of them is called as a descriptive. Another one is called as inferential statistics. In descriptive statistics, you are going to describe the data by using the different measures of central tendency, measures of variations, dispersion, so on and so forth. That's where we call it as the statistics foundation. We can also see what are the different types of statistics, where do we use what, and how we can leverage the power of statistics in different domains. That's the statistics foundation. The next topic is all about the data and sampling. Another very important topic to understand what kind of data that we have to understand. This is called the data type or data itself. There are two types of data, quantitative and qualitative. What do you mean by that? When to use what? What do you mean by categorical data? How it is going to affect our data selection when we go for ML? All of that stuff we'll understand here. Then we'll go for sampling. Again, there are two major type of samplings. One is called as a random sampling, and another one is called as a non-random sampling. Random and non-random sampling. More on that later. Sampling, just to give you a context here, is the way we are going to take a subset of a data. When you are having a huge data, it is not possible for you to read every single data or to use the entire data. This is called as a population. So you cannot deal with the population altogether. So you are taking a small portion of it, a bite of it. And this one here is called as a sample. And there are two techniques. One is called the random sampling. Another one is called as non-random sampling. More on that starting from tomorrow. So that's what we are going to learn in the data and sampling. Under the measures, as I said last time, there are four types of measures that we'll be learning. One of them is called as the measures of central tendency. Under which we will be learning four of them, or rather three of them, not four, three of them, mean, mode, median. Then we'll go for measures of dispersion, or it is also called as a measures of a spread, how data is spread from the mean value. This is called the measures of spread. Then we'll go for measures of symmetry, it is known as, under which we'll be learning two measures. One of them is called the skewness, another one is called the kurtosis, and last one is called as a relationship, measures of relationship, and under which we are going to learn two. One of them is called as the covariance, another one is called the correlation. Both of them will be learning here. All of them will describe the data. Then comes the data visualization, another very important technique with which we will do something called as data analysis. Analysis means understanding a data. And if you want to understand a data, you have to put that under visualization by building different type of charts. For example, we'll be using scatter plot, box plot, line plot, histogram, bar chart, pie chart. All of them are the means of visualizing the data, converting your data in terms of a charts. That's called the data visualization. And we'll be using a couple of libraries out there as well, like Matplotlib, Seaborn, so on and so forth. Then comes something called the distributions. How the data is distributed, that will be shown by using different type of distributions. Like, for example, we will be learning binomial distribution, binomial distribution. Another one is called as a Gaussian distribution, and one of the very important called as the normal distribution. Now, how will it affect later? I'll talk about it when we go for ML, but here we are learning the foundation. These are very important topics to learn ML well. So this is a distribution. Using this distribution, later on we'll go for hypothesis testing. We'll be learning something called the t-test, student t-test, it is also known as ANOVA, analysis of variance, more on that later, or f-test. So there's a chi-square test. There are many actually. We will not learning all of them, but at least couple of them. Chi-square test. So there are many different options available in the hypothesis testing. Another important topic for ML. That's where we will learn all the different type of testings. Another important topic is called the probability. I hope many of you, or other almost all of you, already have heard about a probability. Probability is like a likelihood of chance or likelihood of getting the event, whether it is yes or no. It's like probably there will be rain tomorrow. So that's what we generally make the claims. So that's going to give you the probability. There are two types of probability you will encounter. One of them is called the simple probability, and another one is called as conditional probability. There is a kind of an algorithm, not algorithm I can say, but the theory that or theorem that we'll be learning in the probability called as Bayes theorem, a very popular one. You might have heard also earlier as well. So that Bayes theorem later in machine learning will be called as naive Bayes theorem, which is used for classification technique. Again, that's why you have to understand it in statistics. And last one here is called the correlation analysis, where we will learn something called as a covariance and correlation. This is a very important topic because without this, you cannot determine what is dependent and what are the independent. Dependent is fine, but independent variables you can't predict without correlation. And that's why we have to learn this technique. Every ML application requires this correlation analysis. Without this, you can't finalize your features or your independent variables. That's why we have to learn it in details. That's what it is. Okay, so that's all about the statistics. Then comes another maybe you can call the milestone called as machine learning. Under machine learning, there are many things as I'm explaining here. We'll first understand the basics of machine learning. Like, what do you mean by machine learning? What are the different types of machine learning? What are the different ways you can perform the machine learning? Like, for example, you might have heard about this. If you haven't, that's good. We'll be learning again from scratch. Something like supervised, unsupervised, something called the reinforcement learning. RL it is known as reinforcement learning, and there are many other options available out there like supervised, unsupervised, semi-supervised reinforcement learning. We'll understand what's the difference between them, when to use what different type of techniques. Then we'll go for foundation of it. Like, for example, there are two types of foundational techniques that we generally go for, something called as regression and something as a classification. We'll understand what do you mean by model, like what is a regression model, what is a classification model, how the model will be created, what are the hyperparameters, so on and so forth. Hyperparameters, we'll understand all the terminologies here in ML foundation. Then we'll go for a very important step again, preparation of your data. As a data engineer, you have to understand how to get your raw data converted into a meaningful information by using data pre-processing techniques. These are known as data cleansing techniques or data cleaning technique. So cleaning or cleansing or scrubbing or wrangling, this is known as. I mean, there are different techniques. Around 20 such techniques are available here to pre-process the data. When the data you are going to download or you are going to capture from different websites or from different APIs, that's called the raw data. That data cannot be used to perform the experiment there. So you have to convert that data in the form your application is expecting. This can be done by using data pre-processing. Okay, and that's an important topic out there. Once we go for that, we'll understand what are the dependent and independent variables by using something called as the feature engineering. So there are two aspects of it. One is called as the feature extraction, which means you are going to extract the features, or another one is called as a feature selection, means you are going to select the features. The features are nothing but the columns of your columns of your data set. These are called the independent variables. So whether you want to select them from the table or select from your existing list of columns, or you are going to create them. To create them, we'll be learning another algorithm called the PCA, Principal Component Analysis, it is known as. And for selection, there are almost 9 to 10 different techniques available out there. And we'll discuss all of them in details when we go for that topic. This is the bread and butter for machine learning developers, regression and classification. This comes under something called as supervised learning. This is where we are going to do something called as a prediction. So this is the prediction. So if you want to predict some future values, it can be done either by using regression or by using classification. Have you noticed? I showed you a demo of predicting the house price. Because it's predicting the future price, it comes under regression. I showed you another demo where churning is possible or not, or whether the customer is going to leave that organization or not. That's called the classification. It's a future value, but it will tell you the answer in terms of class, yes or no, positive or negative, something like that. That's called as classification technique. So one is regression, predicting the future value, and one is the classification, predicting the future class. Yes or no, both of them are the classes. So predicting the class is called the classification, predicting the value is called as a regression. Next comes the dimensionality reduction. Dimension reduction means reducing number of columns or number of features. So reducing number of columns, or you can call them as a number of features. Features means columns. For now, understand that. Actually, features means independent variables, but more on that later. So actually speaking, all of them are the columns of your DeepL or dataset. So reducing the number of features is known as principal, is called the dimensional reduction, and we'll be kind of developing an application to do that by using something called the PCA, principal component analysis it is known as. This is a technique that comes under something called as unsupervised machine learning algorithm, it is known as. Tomorrow we'll discuss all of this in details, tomorrow, definitely tomorrow, we'll see. Somewhere we will discuss this, supervised learning, unsupervised learning, so on and so forth. Next is something called as clustering. Clustering is again unsupervised learning, and this unsupervised learning is going to give you the grouping. This is called unsupervised learning. Unsupervised learning. In the clustering, you are going to create the clusters, the group of your data. This can be done by using dbScan, a very important algorithm, dbScan. The H clustering, it is known as. Hierarchical clustering, it is known as, to be honest. And there is k-means clustering. The simplest one is called the k-means clustering. Clustering means grouping. Given the data, I want to create different groups of them. That's called the clustering. And finally, we'll develop this end-to-end ML application, like what I showed you earlier. In this particular case, we'll go for churn modeling, or we can go for something like the house price prediction by using the end-to-end. End-to-end means it'll have both the model generation and the UI as well. UI is for end users and model generation is for you, developers. So this is the end-to-end pipeline. We'll be developing 2 projects here in machine learning. Next comes the major one that's called as a deep learning. And the deep learning, as I mentioned, it's a subset of ML. This is where your ANN will be used. So that's called the deep learning. Under deep learning, we'll understand what exactly the difference between ML and the DL. I mean, where ML stops and where DL starts. When do you go for ML and when do you go for DL? So this is what we'll be kind of discussing here. We'll also discuss something called as ANN or neural network, to be honest, not only ANN. We'll discuss the generic architecture of neural network like BNN, ANN, CNN, RNN, so on and so forth. For this, we'll be using a library called the PyTorch, industry standard library, where we will learn the basics of it. Like, what do you mean by something called something called the tensor? This is the basic building block of any deep learning application, any Gen AI application. Tensor. Without tensor, you can't do anything. Okay. What is a tensor? We'll talk about that later by using a PyTorch. I was planning to go for TensorFlow as well. So let's see. TensorFlow comparatively is a 10 times simpler, not 10 times, 20 times simpler than PyTorch. If you are writing a code, let's say in PyTorch, which is almost like 100 lines required to solve a particular problem, the same problem in TensorFlow can be solved hardly in 10 to 15 lines of code. You see the difference here. So TF is mainly used for TensorFlow, it is known as, given by Google. It is mainly used for production, where the number of lines are very small because most of the things are done behind the scene by TensorFlow. So when you are learning, it's recommended to go with the PyTorch, where you can literally write every line of code, understanding how the theoretical, theoretical understanding is given. So based on that, we'll be focusing on PyTorch, but we'll see an example of TensorFlow as well. It's called the TF, TensorFlow here. We will then dive into the artificial neural network, or ANN it is known as, and this is where we'll start doing the classification and regression here, mainly the classification. Like what I showed you earlier, churn analysis. That churn analysis can be done either by ML algorithm or can also be done by using DL algorithm. The example which I showed you was using DL, So it could be DL or it could be ML as well. Depends on us. Then comes the next example called the computer vision. The example of cats and dogs classification. This is done by using a CNN, that is under the computer vision. We'll see a couple of demos of something called an OpenCV for image processing. It's a very popular library in image processing. Like if you must have used something called the Adobe Photoshop, This is an Adobe Photoshop for developers. You write the code and do the same thing what Adobe Photoshop does, but programmatically. That's OpenCV. That is kind of considered here in the computer vision. I showed you two demos of computer vision. One of them was cats and dog classification. Another one was object detection, YOLO. So that also comes under the computer vision itself. The next one is neural language processing, not neural, natural language processing. This is where we'll be going with something called as the NLP technique. And the problem that we'll be solving is called as a sentiment classification or sentiment analysis, it is known as. Whether the review is positive, negative, or neutral, the example that I showed you earlier, that comes under NLP. And in NLP, there are almost 20 such techniques available in order to process our data. TF-IDF is algorithm, bag of words is algorithm. So all of them are kind of algorithms used in NLP. That NLP will be leveraged to create a sequential model by using something called a recurrent neural network, which can be done by using either a GRU, gated recurrent unit, as I said last time, and LSTM, long short-term memory it is known as. And both of them will provide the modeling for sequential data, textual data, sequential or textual data. So when your data is textual or when you're having a text data, you will go for recurrent neural network. Sentiment analysis was done by using a recurrent neural network, RNN, GRU, and LSTM. You saw the code also. So that is a demo which is going to tell you how to deal with that. Then comes the transformer, and this is the most important thing in today's world, because all of your LLMs are using transformers behind the scene. Almost all. Not every LLM is a transformer based, but most of the LLMs are using transformers. So here we'll understand the technique or the architecture of a transformer. What is a transformer? What do you mean by encoder, decoder, so on and so forth. Encoder, decoder, how these guys are going to work together, encoder, decoder, so on and so forth. So we'll be learning this here. And then finally, we'll be developing the capstone project, which we already have seen earlier as a demo. So that is a project that we'll be developing under DL. Now, once you understand DL, the main thing that you are kind of here for is called as generative AI. This is where we'll leverage the power of LLM. This is where we'll start with it. What do you mean by traditional AI? Like ANN versus Gen AI. So here we'll understand something called as the ANN, and then we'll kind of compare it versus LLM to generate the content. ANN is used for classification or regression. LLM, on the other hand, is used for content generation. Different type of content will be generated here. That's a Gen AI. That's why it's called the generative AI, the AI that can generate the content. Then comes the LLM. This is the building block of today's applications, I can say. Large language models will go in depth of what exactly large language models are and how they are built in today's world. That's called the large language models. And there are many options available out there. To use this, we have to write different inputs. We call them as prompts. So here we'll understand how to write the good prompts. What different things should be considered to write the prompt in order to get the right result or a more accurate result in first go itself. You don't have to go for back and forth, because we have to understand that when you are dealing with the large language models, we have to burn our tokens. This is called as a tokenization. And when you are going to pass input to LLM in terms of prompts, it is going to consume the token. So we want to, we want to minimize the token to get more accurate answer. Prompt engineering is very important in today's world to get the better result. So this is what we are going to learn there. The next one, again, this is called an embedding and a vector DB. The demo that you saw, a RAG application, where I was uploading my file, my resume, and I was kind of asking some questions out there. This is possible by using something called an embeddings and the vector DB. Again, we'll see all of these things in details. The vector DB that we are going to use here is called as a chroma DB. So that's called the vector DB. It stores something called an embeddings. Embedding means it's the latent conversion of your information. I know you can't understand that right now, but just understand this is the way it is going to find out the information. It's called an embeddings, and those embeddings will be stored in the vector DB. Again, that vector DB will be using in this particular context of retrieval augmented generation or a RAG. You saw the demo of it. Then we'll go for another topic called the fine tuning LLM, another important topic where we want to use LLM in the real world with less number or less configuration of your machine. This is where we'll be understanding something called the LoRa or a QLoRa, you know, low rank adaptation or quantified low rank adaptation, it is known as. This uses a technique called as a quantization. All of them are generally asked in the interviews. That's the reason we'll be kind of doing all of them. We'll be kind of going through all of these topics out there. Then we'll go for, someone was asking, are we going to do that? Yes, we are going to go for this, but not in too much details, because for agentic AI, there's a separate course out there. We'll discuss all of this in details later, but this is where we'll go for agentic AI. The example which I showed you earlier, the enterprise level production ready rack pipeline, it is using the agentic AI behind the scene. So what is the agent and how does it work? We'll talk about that later. And this will be the last topic of this entire course, called as MCP, Model Context Protocol. There we are going to go for MCP server and MCP client. What do you mean by this, or what do you mean by MCP repository? All of that stuff we'll be learning later towards the end of this entire course, so all of these things will be kind of going through. And again, whatever I mentioned here, I'll be going through all the details later. So do not worry about this right now. I know you are asking the questions like, what do you mean by this? What do you mean by that? I'm deliberately not answering this question today because even if I want to, I can't. It requires some background. So for example, if you're asking the question like how the embeddings are generated, I can't answer the question right now because you need to understand what is the embedding first. What's the difference between the embedding and the normal text, or how you convert the text into embeddings. You need to find it out first. What do you mean by vectors and other stuff? Then and only then you can understand how those embeddings can be generated and how can they be used behind the scene in LLMs. So all of that stuff requires some backgrounds. So as and when we continue further, we'll start answering those questions. But believe me or not, all of these points which I mentioned here and more than them, we'll be discussing here throughout our journey. So again, very quickly, we'll start the statistics, then we'll go for machine learning, then we'll go for deep learning, and then we'll go for, then we'll go for something called as generative AI. Generative AI is the last part of this entire course. Okay, now if I want to do that job, like if I want to go for developing all these applications, definitely we need to write the Python code. And if you're using Python code, you have to have different libraries in the picture. Without libraries, none of these programs, none of these applications are possible. So giving you heads up, like what kind of libraries that we'll be using. For almost all the demos, will require these common, the common libraries out there. And very important library called as the NumPy, numeric Python, it is known as. It's called numeric computing in Python. Arrays and numeric computing. More on that later. Hopefully tomorrow, day after tomorrow, we'll start working on that. This is another important one commonly used called the pandas, which is going to give us a tabular data manipulation by using something called the data frames. More or less, the data cleansing will be done by using pandas a lot. Then comes the SciPy, statistics or distributions, hypothesis testing, models, simple models can be created by using something called the SciPy. Matplotlib, Seaborn, Plotly, all of them are used for visualization. I think Plotly is not what we are going to go using here because, I'm not sure. I'm not going to say that is not something which we'll be covering, but I'm saying optionally we'll cover that. These two will be more than sufficient for us to go for visualization when it comes to the ML's data understanding or data analysis. EDA process is called as exploratory data analysis, under which we have to turn the data into visualization, into some charts. This is where we'll go for Matplotlib and Seaborn to create the heat maps and others. Throughout the entire course, we'll be using Jupyter a lot, which is going to give us a notebook-like functionality. Again, more or less, we'll talk about that later. But I'll show you that how you are going to use it. Then, these are commonly used in all the different modules. Then it comes to the classic ML. In classic ML, this is the major one, scikit-learn. All the algorithms that I mentioned, like linear regression or decision tree, and all of them, they are coming from this package called as scikit-learn. Then comes the stats model. Basic regression and classification techniques can be, algorithms can be taken from here, stats model. XGBoost, LightGBM, and CatBoost. They are the different libraries which are going to provide the extreme gradient boosting, LightGBM, and the cat boosting algorithm. So these algorithms are taken from different libraries. These are the libraries out there, and we'll be developing them. These are ensemble techniques. Imbalanced learning. So when your data is imbalanced, when one category is having high number of records, the second category is having low number of record, that means it's kind of this causes a biased data or unbalanced or imbalanced data. So to convert that imbalanced data into balanced one, we'll be using some technique called the SMOOT. It's called an oversampling algorithm. This will be done by using a library called the imbalance learn. Oversampling or undersampling, both of them can be done by using imbalance library. Optuna is used for hyperparameter tuning. And then optionally, I'm not sure whether we'll be getting that much of time, but we'll see. Wide data profiling and a sweet whiz, it is known as, which is the EDA reports generated automatically for us. We'll see. If time permits, we'll definitely go for that. This is called as the part 1 ML libraries list. Next one is the deep learning. And as I mentioned last time, we'll be focusing more or less on Torch, PyTorch it is known as. For CNN, we'll be requiring this one, Torch Vision. And for image processing, as I mentioned, we'll be using OpenCV Python. So this is where we'll understand what do you mean by images, how the images are stored, how the images can be read, and how the permutations, or sorry, how the matrix manipulation can change the image appearance. OpenCV, that's called the image processing. In a second part of NLP, in second part, we'll be dealing with the DL by using the NLP transformer and LLMs. And that's where we'll be using transformers. This is the Hugging Face library. More on that later. Datasets provide the free datasets, open source datasets available. Tokenizers are used for LLM to tokenize the data and pass it to the LLMs. Accelerate for something like it's like maybe you can say LLM communication will get device or distributed training helper will get accelerated, nothing more than that. Sentence transformer, it is one of the transformer techniques available out there. Optionally we'll use it, it's not required to use it, but we'll see. PEFT, this is under something called the LLM fine tune, not LLM, model fine tuning, or you can simply call the fine tuning itself. So the fine tuning will be done by, as I mentioned, LoRa QLEDA. It's called the parameter efficient fine tuning. PEFT, it is known as. It's an important algorithm and it's an important question asked in today's interviews. What is a RAG and what do you mean by fine tuning of a model? Which one is better and when do you use what? So this is called as a parameter efficient fine tuning. This is a fine tuning technique. Then there's a bits and bytes, and then NLTK and SPACY. NLTK and SPACY is mainly used for text processing, NLP style, and bits and bytes are used for quantization technique. More on that later. The last technique or the last set of libraries are used for generative AI and the deployment. So for generative AI, like RAG and agents and MCPs, we'll be using a ChromaDB as I mentioned. Then Phase CPU, that's also is called a vector database, which is like maybe you can say alternative to the Chroma. We can also go for LangChain, very important in today's world. OpenAI for model to answer our questions. And MCP, that is again the library which is used for generating the MCP, the Model Context Protocol SDK. That's one MCP SDK. For deploying means if I want my application to be used in the real world, I have to go for different libraries like Fast API. The last example which I showed you, which was having the HTML as a UI, it was using my model on top of something called as a Fast API that provides a REST API backend. So that's what the last demo that we'll be developing here. Then the Streamlit, almost all demos I showed you were having kind of UI developed in Streamlit. Pydantic is used for data validation. Python.env is used for loading the content from or loading the variables from .env file. Another important one which you don't want to kind of share your the sensitive data, so you can put that in .env and get the job done. And finally, to consume the APIs, we'll be using request packages. So these are the packages, these are the libraries that we'll be dealing with throughout the course. So you can understand like how many packages that we will be dealing with. It's like huge, as I said, there are so many things that we have to learn along the way. Finally, if I want to start with this class, or if you want to start with this class, what exactly the prerequisites are? I mean, we already have mentioned them earlier in the course pamphlet as well, but I'm going to repeat it one more time. What I'm expecting from you is this: only one language, and that is a Python. So we'll not talk about the Python here, but we'll be using Python every single day. So if you are still having any questions or doubt, you can put them on WhatsApp later. But please don't ask those questions here in the class, because this class is mainly focused on the machine learning, Gen AI, and something like DL. So Python questions, don't ask them here. Development environment will be using a local machine with the good configuration, and if possible, if you are having GPU, nothing like it. GPU is optional, it's not required. Even if your machine is having a low configuration, still every demo will work on that. If you think like, no, I want to do it a little bit faster, you can go for Google Colab. It's called the Google Collaboratory. It's called the Google Colab. So if you want, you can go for Google Colab in order to perform all the different operations on the cloud. So you will have a better configuration there. You don't have to purchase any new machine for that. All you are looking for, or all we are looking for, is a machine. It does not require any GPU at this point. Then we'll have to have an access to LLM. Either you can go for a local free of cost. This is free. This is open, not open source, but this is the free of cost. So you don't have to pay for anything. If you want to go for commercial one, you'll have to take an account from OpenAI and hardly $5 to $10 as your initial, initial balance. Then it will allow you to call all the APIs and you are sorted out. Again, it's optional. I'll show you both the techniques. We'll be kind of using Olama a lot because it's like free of you and free of all, and probably you all can use it without paying a single penny to anyone. That's why I'll be kind of focusing on Olama. Of course, the same code can also work with OpenAI as well, changing the URL. More on that later. More or less, this is what am I looking for. I want you to dedicate your time here and do that seriously. Second, I am looking for the willingness to learn something new, and not one. There are many new things. Most of you are having no idea what exactly it is. So please pay more attention, be attentive, ask the questions, and probably get the answers here in the class. Of course, when you are having some doubts, you can also put them on WhatsApp. When I get time, I definitely will answer them there as well. So these are the course prerequisites. This is what am I looking from your side. Okay. I'll tell you what you are expecting from my side earlier. Now I'm telling you what I'm expecting from your side. So please understand the techniques, understand the requirements, and then only you continue with that. Okay. These are the books that I have referred. I already have the entire books on my bookshelf as well, behind the scene and the other side also. So all these books are very important one. If you are kind of willing to kind of looking for making a career here in this particular field or in this particular part of the world, these are the best books. And when I say best, these are the chosen ones. I'm telling you again, all these books I have read page by page, page to page, from front to the front to back, all page by page, and I love this book. I mean, other than this, I've read a couple of other books as well, but these are the prominent books. I mean, if you search on Google, you will also know like these are the ones which are toply rated. So I would recommend you, you know where to get the PDF from, so I don't have to tell you that. So you can get the PDF and you can start learning them. I mean, I fall in that category where I can't read from PDF. I generally go for offline books. All of these books are also available on Amazon as well. You can directly purchase from there and you can start reading it. Again, these are the books that I have referred. So whatever that we are going to see in this entire course from start to end, all of them are coming from these particular books. If you are having any doubt, you can definitely download the book and verify the stuff there. Okay. Yes, sequence is also important one. So precisely you start with this one, practical statistics. This is the first one that you will start with because this is what we are going to start with, practical science. Then you go for essential math. This is where we'll go for algebra. So statistics and algebra will be covered here. Then you go for something like, where is that? Here it is, machine learning. This is where we'll go for these. I mean, this guy, the book is really awesome. But this guy is using a TensorFlow. It's not using the PyTorch. PyTorch will have to just convert that code. Conceptually, this book is really nice. That is what you are going to learn there. Then comes something like machine learning algorithms this is fourth one. So you can go for that. Once you understand the machine learning, this is both. I mean, this has got the little bit of deep learning, and this is something like the machine learning, completely machine learning out there. Now, once you are done with that, you can learn something like the AI, but for AI directly, you can't get the book here for the AI, but this is more or less the book which will teach you everything in AI. I mean, starting from the beginning to the deployment of it. AI engineering, very nice book, perfectly good book if you're studying AI for the first time. AI engineering it is known as. After that, all of them are generative AI, so you can read them in any sequence. I would start with this one. This is the sixth one. This is the seventh one. Inactions are very good, by the way, to start with it. Then we can go for eighth one. This is the ninth. I mean, this is the parallel one. You can start with this and all the other books simultaneously because LangChain is the one that is going to be used for calling the APIs from LLM. And this one is like 10th and somewhere it is missing 10th. And this is going to be the last one I would read. Sorry, this is 11th and this is the last one that I would read. This is one of the best books. If you want to go for it. This is written by Jay. Yeah, it's a very good book. It's a very prominent book used in this industry for generative AI. So hopefully, Bilal, now you can understand the sequence as well, how you should go for it, you know. So probably you can go for these books if you really want to. PDFs are by default available. You know where you can get them from, and you can start reading them along with the course. And this will give you more confidence when you're going for interviews as well. Now, this is all about the course. Now, let me quickly introduce myself. So, I'm having more than 18 years of experience. Probably I started my career back in 2007, worked for a small, not small, a big company at that time. Then I left the company in 2009 and started becoming a freelancer. I was never willing to work for any company, and still I'm not working for any of the company at the moment. Here in Sunbeam, I'm working as Associate Technical Director. And at the same time, as I mentioned, I'm working as a freelance developer and with the real world project with overseas clients. I have my own clients where I deal with them every day. After 2 o'clock, when I finish my sessions in Sunbeam, I change my hat. I wear my different hat of freelance developer and start dealing with them. So many applications, numerous iOS and Android applications have been developed in both the native as well as in hybrid format. You know, hybrid means React Native is what I generally use. Other than that, I have developed many or various different websites using LAMP. LAMP is something which is outdated now, but once upon a time, I was using this only option for developing the websites. It's like Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. I was using PHP at that time. It was replaced later by using Angular. It's called as a Mongo, Express, Angular, and Network. And recently, around 2017 or something, I switched from Angular to Moon. It's called as a R stands for React. So love this stack out there. I mean, and more. Other than that, I mean, I love these languages like C, C++ for, of course, performance reason. Python a lot for machine learning and some other applications as well. JavaScript for React. TypeScript for, again, React as well as Angular. PHP, nowadays I'm not using it. And Go is something that I'm using for backend development because Go is one of the fastest language out there. I will give the best performance out there. That's the reason I started using the Go for backend development. Right now, I'm pursuing my PhD in computer applications using machine learning. My application or my thesis, or you can say the research is also in machine learning. This is I'm getting my PhD. I'm pursuing my PhD from LPU, lovely professional university, and hopefully this is my 4th year. In the next year, 2017, touchwood, I'll get my final PhD degree. You know, so along with this, I also in love with something as a DevOps. And in DevOps, I also have got certain certifications like Kubernetes application developer, Kubernetes administration. Both of them are used for content orchestration certifications. One of them for development, another one is for administration. This is for CI/CD pipeline using Jenkins. One of the beloved application called a Docker, can't live without it. That's a Docker. Linux Plus, because other than Mac, I love the operating system called the Linux. I mean, I use both of them interchangeably, Mac and Linux, you know. And finally, the Security Plus as well. This is for making my applications more secure because when you develop the application in today's world, you have to protect your data. And how will you protect your data? All these techniques are given in this particular certification. It's like CompTIA Security Plus. You might have heard about that. Other than that, I were having some other certifications as well, but they are now expired. That's the reason I don't even mention them, like RHC, Red Hat Certified Engineer, or the SQL Star, the Oracle certifications. I completed them way back in 2010, 2011. So all of them are literally gone, expired. So, and that knowledge is also outdated. So I don't use Oracle anymore. I mean, I don't use SQL anymore. I use more or less Mongo. That's like, oh, no SQL database, you know. That's the reason I didn't mention other certifications there. But you are in the good hands. So do not worry about that. Anything you are having a trouble with, you can definitely ask the question in class or after the class as well. No problem with that. Provided I can answer the question, you will get an answer. Now, a couple of rules and regulations or terms and conditions when you're joining for this course. The class will exactly start around 8, 9 p.m. every single day without miss. Please join before 5 minutes, you know, so that you will be kind of prepared for the class. And if you're having some questions, you can directly ask starting in the class. I generally start around 5 or 10 minutes before. So if you're having any questions from the previous class, you can definitely ask them before we start our session. All the classes will be conducted from Monday to Friday or all days in a week. All classes will be recorded and will be provided to the student portal very next day before 10 a.m. I mean, it will be around 7 or 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, but max to max 10 a.m. you can consider. So plan accordingly. All the sessions will be recorded and all the sessions will be available for some time. I think Rahul sir can tell you what is the last date the sessions will be available on the student portal. When you are having a doubt, write them somewhere in your notebook. So do not directly ask the questions, because the question might get covered in the topic that will be covering. So what generally happen here is people immediately start asking the questions, and I know that question will be answered in immediate topic. So I have to say, okay, hold on for some time and you will get the answer in the next topic. So it's better you write down somewhere and ask once the entire session is over. So even if your question is not getting answered, definitely ask it, But more or less, what I'm suggesting here is when you're having a question, write it down somewhere and ask after the end of the session. We'll kind of spare maybe 10-15 minutes for getting your questions answered. To avoid the class disturbance, it's better for you at the end of the theoretical discussion, we'll spend some time asking the questions. So ask your questions, shoot your questions at that time. And finally, all source code will be shared in a GitHub repository, which you will get access in a couple of days. So that's what the plan here is. Yes. So these are the rules or you need to follow when you are coming for the course. I hope everything is now clear to all of you. QA session, will be doing it every day. After the session, we'll be spending 10-15 minutes to answer your question. Shubham, there's no separate QA day we'll be kind of reserving, but this will be kind of every single day we'll spend some time towards the end of it. That's what it is. I'll be providing all the theory notes, Gauri, along with the notes or along with the slides that I'm using, where I'm drawing the things or where I'm kind of answering or maybe writing something there. So all the things what you see here on board or on the screen, I'll be sharing every damn thing within the repository. That's what I said. All the notes and all the slides and everything will be shared on Git repository. So don't worry about that. Yes, core Python is what we are looking for. We are not looking for fancier Python. Even if you do not know the entire object-oriented Python, it's all right. Nothing is kind of you're not going to lose anything there. Even the basic Python is what I'm expecting. Nothing more than that. 25th October, 26th is the last number. 25th October. Yeah. Okay. So the sessions will be there almost like 25th of October. So plan accordingly. It's like almost like 6 months that you will get here for sure. So those recordings will be available on your student portal. I hope other than those questions, like what do you mean by embeddings and other stuff, I hope you have already got the answers of those questions. Rest the questions that you asked last time, like what do you mean by this? What do you mean by that? How does this work? Whether TensorFlow is better or not? I'll answer all of these questions as we move along with the course, okay? Because that requires some context. And unless you know the context, there's no point answering the question. So go for that. The course duration, I think you already have seen earlier. This is kind of 2 months course. So we're starting from 25th January, sorry, 25th May. I think it's almost like 26th of July, I believe. 26th, or we'll see. If time requires, we'll go extend this time duration. That's why I generally do not go for the last day of the sessions. More or less, it will be 2 months. But if required, we can extend this date. Unless and until we cover all the topics, we'll not stop. That is the guaranteed. Okay? So don't worry about that. Yes, Dattatreya, after we finishing with this, there is a fourth part coming up that's called the agentic AI. You will see that complete later in your course. Yes, Abhishek?
Training हो रहा है.
Acha, okay, no worries. Okay, so in this particular aspect, yes, there is an agentic AI course coming up and you will see that complete very soon. How this course will help you? Who's that? Akshay? This course will tell you how to use AI in the real world, plus what happens behind the scene. By the way, I didn't mention this on the anywhere in the slides, but one important point will be talking about something called the interview preparation. So Akshay, if you are willing to go in this particular field, what kind of questions are being asked? You are going to answer those, how you are going to answer those questions. We'll be discussing all of them along with the topics, that we are learning here. So that will help you to prepare yourself for interviews. And definitely, if you are changing your field, this is something the must-have knowledge for you in today's world. Okay. Don't worry, Kanchan will be talking about this. I'll show you the demos of it. Don't worry about that. Are we going to cover the LangGraph or LangChain? We are going to go with the LangChain. LangGraph is the next part, agentic AI. That's where we are going to develop the agents. But I'll show you a small demo of LangGraph as well. Don't worry. I'll show a small demo, but LangChain is what we are going to use. Do we need to install anything other than local machine? I'll explain this. Mainly get your Python installed. Other than that, all the things what we require, we'll install it on the same day when we are going to use them. So don't worry about the instructions on that. I'll provide all the instructions in the same notebook or in the same notes which we are going to learn or which we are going to cover on that day. Okay. Okay, what is the approach to follow the practice? Practice We'll see. Like as and when you cover the topic, you have to write the code on your own precisely. If you're stuck somewhere, definitely look at the code that we are writing here, but try doing it on your own multiple times a day. Shima, will you provide the notes for topics? Yes, I'll provide the notes. Not only this, but I also have the other notes created. I'll be sharing that notes later. So don't worry. The notes will be provided to all of you. Don't worry. We'll get explored to the explanation and hands-on product. Yes, of course, everything is going to be practically covered. It's not like we are going to just discuss the theoretical part. We'll discuss theoretical part, no doubt in that. Without theory, if you are directly going with the directly jumping into the practical, it's of no use, believe me. So you have to know theory behind it first, and then we are going to jump the writing the code. So starting with all the code, I'm sorry, all the topics will be conducted literally practically, like the fine tuning and training as well. Yes. Who's that? Probably Harshal. Yes, we'll be going with the fine tuning as well. That's why I mentioned Laura and Q Laura. So we'll be doing it from scratch, practically in the course. Yes, Claude. No, instead of using Claude, we'll be using OpenAI. Once you understand one model, you can definitely change that model on the fly. There is no problem because we are using a LangChain. Just changing one simple library, it will change, not library, a change of one function will change the entire model. So you don't have to worry about learning every single model out there because ultimately we are going to solve that problem by using a LangChain. Will you take 1 day Python brush up if possible? We'll see, Aniket, if it is possible. Okay. Any particular laptop configuration needed? No, your normal laptop is more than sufficient. You do not need any special laptop for that because we are not going to create a huge data. We are not going to process the huge data. So don't worry about that. So a simple laptop, a small laptop is going to be sufficient for you. Yes. Yeah, yes. Shubham, you are raising your hand, please. Go ahead.
Sir, I do have few queries
Sure.
about will you be covering the fraud detection recommendation system kind of thing?
If possible, definitely, I would love to, but it all depends on the time that is going to take. If it is taking more time, we'll have to drop it. But if time permits, and if you still have got, energy left, definitely we can go for recommendation engine. No problem.
And so a few of the topics more like RAG evaluation and implementing the
Yes.
guardrails.
Yes, that will be anyways there because when it comes to the rack, we have to consider these topics by default. So it's like assumed. So
Okay.
in today's world, when you are developing something like this, like a rack pipeline, this is by default assumed because once you write the code, how will you know whether your model is good or bad, or how does it is solving your problem? So we have to find out those metrics. That's called as a RAG evaluation, right? So yes, we are going to discuss that in the RAG pipeline demonstration there. Yes.
And so one more topic regarding like AI ethics, if
Which one?
possible. AI ethics.
FX, I don't think it is.
Ethics. AI ethics, sir. AI ethics.
Yes, understood that, but it's not in this particular case. We'll be talking about some advanced cases in terms of agentic AI, the next course, not in this course. It's planned, but in the next one. Okay,
Okay.
sure. Front-end developer with 2 years of experience, will this course enough to switch the field? Yes. Swaraj, this is going to be definitely possible, and this is definitely the course is designed for the same reason. So definitely the answer is yes. Srinivas, can we join the organization is AI engineering? Yes, that's what the point here is. Srinivas, the same answer. Yes, after completion of this course, you can definitely look for AI job. But again, for this, you'll have to practice a lot, a lot. This one, if you understand and if you practice very well every single day, you definitely can conquer any job there. I can guarantee on that. Yes, there'll be a lot of assignments, Seema, on all the topics. So definitely you're going to be engaged for next 2 months. So don't worry about that. We'll be having ton of assignments out there. Current strategy everyone should follow getting maximum from this course. To get the maximum from this course, follow along with me in a sense like be in the class, be more attentive, ask the questions at the end of the sessions, of course, and definitely practice as much as you can. Without practice, you cannot get anything. And all the sessions have been recorded. So even if you miss something in between, you can revise it by watching the video one more time. Okay. Are we going to cover the end-to-end model deployment? Of course, yes. I already have shown you that also. Yes, we are. Agentic AI is not part of this course. Yes, Amit, it's not a part of this course. There's a separate course which will be launching once we are done with that. This is called the Agentic AI, where we are going to learn the N8N, maybe MCP in details, Agentic AI, how to go for creating the multiple agents, how the agents will talk to each other. It's called the agent orchestration, so on and so forth. Multi-agent applications, so on and so forth. Not yet planned, Sagar, but we'll see, definitely. Yes, Swaraj, you are raising your hand, please.
Yes. Yeah, hi Amit. So
Yep.
basically, the project you have shown,
Hmm.
so are those beneficial for just like if I have 2+ years of experience, so are that much is enough to get the job in AI field,
Yes,
or I?
more than enough. Those projects which I showed you are generally considered as maybe you can say it's like a default understanding from your ML or AI or DL. So the project that we have chosen here, they are kind
Okay.
of showcasing the skills that you have learned, you know.
Okay.
So they're the standard projects. If you are going for the companies, unfortunately or fortunately, I mean, I ask the different, I mean, I sit for the interviews to, hire the people for different companies. So I do that as a part of freelance developer, and I know what kind of questions are being asked in the interviews. So when you say you have developed this application, the next person can understand what have you done there, because they're the standard projects, so that's why it's more than
Yes.
enough. And not only them, we are going to develop some other projects as well. These are something like a milestone. So once we're done with certain topics, we'll be considering this as okay, we are done now, let me show you whether have you understood it or not. That's a kind of a, maybe you can say, cherry on a cake. It's not like only those projects
Yes.
will be developing, but those are the milestones. Okay.
Okay. Because
Yes,
just like means I'm not here just to complete the course because I want to top
exactly.
of the top in this field. So that's why
Absolutely.
I'm just asking.
And that's what I'm also willing for you, not only you, all of you to do. I mean, don't just consider this complete the project or complete this course.
No,
Try to get the benefits out of it. Definitely. That's what the point
definitely.
here is.
Yeah,
Very
sure.
nice.
Thank you, Amit. Yeah,
Yep,
thank you.
definitely. Yes, Raj. Okay, I think he got accidentally unmuted. No worries. Okay, so Python version that we are using is called the 3.11. Whichever is available in 3.11, you can go for that. No problem. 3.11 has got a good dependency on the other packages. So go for 3.11. Hopefully, Uzma, you are asking that question. So go for 3.11. And I'll mention that from tomorrow onwards. Tomorrow we'll be starting with the first session on the statistics. We'll understand what statistics means, descriptive statistics, inferential statistics, the techniques out there, and then we'll start with the measures of central tendency, dispersions, and so all of that stuff. Okay. Okay, I think the answers you already have got, I believe. So with that, I think better for us to stop for the day today, and we'll continue starting from tomorrow, right? Yes, definitely, Neha. More than what you have learned in DBA, you are going to learn here. So definitely, the answer is yes. Sure. So again, thank you very much, guys, for attending today's session. Really love to see you every single day. So be here, be attentive, and again, when you are in doubt, definitely get the answer in the class. After the class, of course. But do not leave any questions behind. Thank you very much, guys. See you tomorrow at the same time. Bye bye.